All right, the time is 7 p.m. We'll call this meeting to order. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Plesky.
Here.
Trustee Delapenna.
Here.
Domke.
Here.
Trustee Forsythe. Here. Here. Trustee Bukowski.
Here.
Trustee Trejo.
Here. We have a quorum. We'll move on to Village Board Public, presentation of the prepared agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as listed?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. Any abstentions? Seeing none, that motion carries. Now we'll move on to Village Board Public Comment. Anyone wish to provide a comment on a topic or an agenda item may address the Village Board during the public comment and public hearing segments of the Village Board agenda. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to address the board at this time? Yep, sir, if you don't mind, just come up to the podium, make sure the microphone's on, and state your name for the record.
I'm Rick Maher. I've been here before, and as you can see, I wasn't planning on coming here just now,
It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
except I just had an encounter with another e-bike.
Okay.
And I talked to Officer Bada about it, and I have pictures and whatnot, so I'm gonna send them along, and hopefully something good will come of it. And I don't know what else to say, but it's a ticking time bomb, and somebody's gonna get hurt or killed. I just see it. I just saw the kids. You could barely see the light on the motorbike, riding on the sidewalk, blowing stop signs, doing wheelies on the sidewalk, the whole shebang. Yesterday, my wife was right around the corner from my house on Menching. Two kids were on the sidewalk. She told them to get off, and they flipped her the bird, like they do a police department and everybody else, because these kids, they don't know the meaning of respect. And I guess my question is, and I know I touched on this briefly last time I was here, I understand Norridge, Orland Park, I think Glenview have banned these vehicles from public places, as maybe Roselle has too, because I'm a little unclear about where they're allowed to ride them. I know it's not on the sidewalk, that I know. But there's a question about the bike paths, being that it's Park District property or Lake Park because it's private property. I don't know. It's just me. I want to see laws with teeth. I mean real teeth. I don't mean a chintzy $50 fine. I mean big time punishments for these kids. Now, I heard of a case. I talked to a police officer yesterday after this happened, and she had told me that they have kind of a court that they have for these kids, that they kind of police themselves. Is that true? Is that some kind of a,
There's a, it's called Peer Jury. It's a national program where essentially,
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the right word here, but essentially it takes them out of the court system, thank you, into something else that doesn't go on their permanent record and allows them to
I got you.
remediate those situations.
I gotcha. And from what I was told, the officer that kind of led this group or whatever, he got fed up with the parents, you know, after the kid was reprimanded or whatever. They made a big stink, and the officer got fed up, and he says, "That's it. Now I'm sending it to the county." And the county took his driver's license away until he was 21. That's what I want to see. I want to see these kids, pardon my French, get a big swift kick in the ass before they run my wife over or my grandkids when we're walking. And I know maybe you are all frustrated with, and I know the police are, of what can be done, but it's just a matter of time again before somebody's going to wipe out And I'm not just thinking about myself. I'm thinking about these kids. We were all young. We were all kids at one time. But I hate to see somebody make a mistake that's going to cost them for the rest of their life. And that's about all I have to say.
So much, appreciate it. I know they're allowed on the streets in town, and so, the park districts have different rules depending on which one you're in. So the Roselle Park District, they allow them to be used with pedal power only. And then Lake Park, they, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think they have anything that forbids them from being on their bike paths. They are technically allowed on village maintained bike paths, which are few and far in between, so, I think the biggest problem is, we've got the rules in the books. It's now a matter of enforcing and being able to ticket those offenders because of the way that they kind of are conducting themselves and whatnot. Appreciate your comments. So we'll make sure, please. Yeah, I think that that's mostly just out of deference to if people purchase them, you can operate them without the motor. That's absolutely a functionality that they can do. Whether they choose to do that or not, that's up to them. I mean, your car can go over 120 miles per hour and you're still expected to go the speed limit. So I think there's a lot of, yes, I understand the skepticism behind it. I have that same skepticism, but there's a lot of other analogies we can draw as far as that goes. So thank you. Is there any other members of the public that wish to address the board at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to officials and staff reports. And remind, I just want to thank everyone for joining us for the rededication for the Remax Legends on Roselle Road. It was nice to see their renovated space there and wish them many more years of success in town. I also have an item for consideration. So I'd like to entertain a motion to authorize the village administrator to negotiate and approve the terms of a excuse me, a sublease agreement for the Metro train station.
Moved.
Second, thank you. We'll have Caitlin Hilliard, our village planner, presenting about the train station coffee sublease. So
Evening.
the sorely vacant space we've had for quite some time.
Yes, so a few weeks ago, Bob Butler, who's here with us tonight, who represents the Center Cup, approached us wanting their group to occupy that vendor space. They're an Itasca-based nonprofit. You may have seen them if you've been up at the Metro station. They run a coffee cart. They've been there a couple days a week for the last few weeks. They give away coffee, tea, hot chocolate, lemonade for free for a suggested donation. Then they take those donations and they donate them to local nonprofits. They also just have a overall goal of kind of building community goodwill. They are hoping to occupy from November to April in the cold months when running that cart becomes difficult. As you all are aware, we've had subleases there in the past. Most recently, it was Maple Leaf Roasters. They ceased operating in the pandemic. Right now, it doesn't seem like it would be super commercially viable for anyone to occupy that. So we're hoping that with the Center Cup, it's kind of a good pilot to have some eyes on the station, to also get kind of the temperature of how many people are passing through, how many people might want to be purchasing things like coffee. So as I said, they're open to kind of a month-by-month agreement. Either party could end it, kind of the dollar goodwill rent, a security deposit, and then as a goodwill gesture, they're also willing to donate to the Roselle Food Pantry. And we're just seeking the ability for the village administrator to kind of negotiate that lease so that they can get in there as soon as possible in November. And like I said, Bob is here, so I think he has a few things to say, and if you have any questions for him.
Great, thank you.
Well, I'm Bob Butler. I'm part of the Center Cup. Also been, the Center Cup's been around for just this our 5th year. It's been an idea that really came about because of a community need. I watched some crazy stuff happen and went, you know what? All the newspaper articles said, you know what? We just want space to hang out. We want to get to know our neighbors. And so we opened up the Center Cup. We acquired the truck, got it donated, and then put it on a corner and just said, okay, anybody wants to come. And what we've seen is the neighborhood come and hang out, right? And what a beautiful thing. It doesn't happen anymore. And you can have conversations with older folks and younger folks, everybody kind of getting to know one another. And so we were doing that, and all of a sudden we had other people call us. We've worked in Leiden. They contract with us to come there and give away at one of their festivals. Done it in Wooddale for the police department as well as the community development area. We've done it in Itasca for tree lightings out to Glendale Heights. People hire us and we go out there and we give it away all free. And so then we take that money and we give it away. Over the last 5 years, we've given over a total of $20,000 away. We use volunteer labor for the most part, but we just did receive a grant from DuPage County that said, hey, if you employ second chance workers, that's what I'm going to call them, they gave us a nice sized grant that says you could be open all year long. Well, I don't know about you, but it's cold in a tin cup. That's really what a truck is. It's just a large tin cup. And I thought, well, it was open. We were there. The Metro, Diana, who works for Metro, came out and said, man, if you were here every day, this could really create some good unity, especially when it gets cold, people sitting inside. And so I said, I'll see what I can do. And so then I contacted Caitlin and we've been having this conversation and it would really help us to continue this and then we could give away, I'm hoping more because there would be a frequency of people who they're going downtown, they have a little bit of change. You know, in the neighborhoods when we're doing it, we have kids show up for lemonades and, you know, one of my favorite stories is 5 or 10 kids kept coming every day on the electric bikes with the wild helmets and everything else. A motorcycle guy pulls up and he has a whole conversation with them about safety. And then the next day, the father shows up at the truck and drops us a significant donation and just said, thank you for talking to my kids. And so we're just trying to be helpful to the community and these conversations are just fun once we get going. So that's why I'd love to do it. I think it gives everybody a win-win for all of us. And at the end of 4 months, we can give you some track record of what we saw, what the dollars were, how much people donated, because we really do not ask for anything. We just say it's donation only. And if they walk away because they can't afford it, that's okay too. All good.
Thank you so much. I know this is a little bit atypical for us, but the space has been vacant for a while. Them being a 501c3, I think in their mission to giving back to the community, I thought was a good fit for us. So, you know, it's open for board consideration. The way we structure this motion is just so we can fast track this, for lack of a better word, since it's not about profit. We want to make sure that we can get them in before it gets too cold for you guys and people can enjoy it. So any thoughts from the board on this one?
I'm okay with it. I like it. A great idea. The place has been vacant and we've been blessed with that space. It needs to be filled by somebody.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, Lee?
The only thing I was gonna say is there any desire just to put in like May 2026, just because I know sometimes the weather isn't great. So instead of just bringing it back in April to extend it.
Yeah, I mean, we can, since we're gonna have Jason negotiate it, we can absolutely, but
I mean,
yeah,
I'm good indefinitely, but I'm just saying
Right.
like, it says November to April, so I just wanted to,
It was
Yeah.
Like 6 months, I think was what.
no, I know that, but I'm saying like, it says month to month anyway, so
Yeah.
I'm kind of good with going indefinitely.
okay.
I'm good with coffee.
Yes.
Have to stop by and make a donation.
You have to find out, Wayne.
Okay, I will.
A little espresso shot. I'll get your day going for you. Absolutely.
All right, well, if there's, yeah, all right, if there's no other discussion then, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? That motion carries. So Jason will be in touch with you and we'll get those terms and conditions kind of finalized. So thank you. That's all I had under my report, besides, I guess, just a broad community, I don't know, I'm preaching to the people on YouTube, but we're starting our budget process and tonight's the first start of that by looking at our capital improvement plan for the next 5 years. And so we'll have a number of meetings coming up throughout the month of November and December to discuss all things budget related. And all I would say is, you know, we're facing uncertainty that we haven't seen in a while with just changes at the federal level about what is and what isn't being funded. The state is also dealing with that as well. And being a municipality, we're at the very bottom of that hill. So I think everyone, I just asked to be engaged and thoughtful through that whole process and understand that we're dealing with the cards we've been dealt the best that we can. And I think Roselle's in a really good position to handle those things, but we have to be very careful about those decisions that we make. So that being the case, any village trustees have a report tonight? All right, seeing none, we'll go on to village clerk, village attorney, village administrator. We'll continue on to unfinished business. First, we have the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine, procedural, informational, self-explanatory, or non-controversial in nature, and will be enacted in one motion. There'll be no discussion of these items unless removed from the consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda tonight? Record show done. Tonight, we have presentation approval of the village board minutes of October 13th, 2025. Pass an ordinance amending the liquor code for the number of Class F liquor licenses from 13 to 14 for My Way Bistro at 394 West Irving Park Road. Adopt a resolution authorizing the approval for payment to Bloomingdale Township for the resurfacing of village streets in the amount of $45,675.77. Pass an ordinance amending Chapter 10, Appendix 5 of Section 5A of the Code of Ordinance of the Village of Roselle, Illinois. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Could we have a roll call, please?
Aye.
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 All right, and that motion carries. We'll continue on to the always busy Development and Engineering Services. Trustee Forsythe.
Thank you, Mayor Pileski. I would like to move to pass an ordinance amending Table 3.2 of the zoning code of the Village of Roselle, Illinois.
Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion on this one? Seeing none, could we have a roll call, please?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
That motion carries.
I would like to move to pass an ordinance granting a special use for the property commonly known as 801 Dave Pate Drive, Roselle, Illinois.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this one? Seeing none, could we have a roll call, please?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Aye.
And that motion carries.
And lastly, I would like to move to pass an ordinance granting a zoning variation for the property commonly known as 120 Spring Street, Roselle, Illinois.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call, please?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
That motion carries.
That's all.
Thank you. We have nothing under administration or fire tonight, but police. Trustee Prokowski.
Thank you, Mayor Pileski. I'd like to move to authorize the Chief of Police to execute an agreement by and between the Village of Roselle and Illinois Law Enforcement Alarm System.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call, please?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries.
That is all I have, Mayor Pileski.
Thank you. We'll move on to Public Works. Trustee Della Penna.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the purchase of two 2026 Ford Mavericks and a Ford Interceptor PPV from Friendly Ford, Inc. in the amount of $114,919.10.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, seeing none, could we have a roll call, please?
Aye.
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 That motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving waiving the village's competitive bid process and authorizing the purchase of a 2026 Chevy Tahoe from Curry Motors in the amount of $59,286.17.
Second.
Thank you. And just a note for the public, we were unable to purchase this from the dealership in town, so that's why we're going through Curry Motors. Any other discussion?
No.
All right, could we have a roll call, please?
Aye.
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 That motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the purchase of a 2025 Caterpillar end loader from Alto for Cat through the Joint Purchasing Cooperative Sourcewell in the amount of $226,999.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this one? Seeing none, could we have a roll call, please?
Aye.
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 That motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion for discussion and to adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the purchase of Vector sewer equipment from Standard Equipment through the Joint Purchasing Cooperative Sourcewell in the amount of $595,682.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion, or do we want to have our Public Works Director present on this item?
Present.
All right, Karen, I'll have you come up and walk through.
Right, so I'm just here to summarize where we left off or where we are from the last meeting. It was requested that staff reach out to the Vector unit to discuss the trade-in value. Vector has increased that trade-in value by $10,000, bringing the total trade-in value up to $60,000. As you recall, there were two different Vector units being discussed. We had a Freightliner unit. Since our last meeting, the pricing for those units has increased by 2.5%, bringing up that cost to $591,000 approximately. The Western Star unit that was ranked number 1 by staff and is also in stock. They have 2 units available for immediate delivery at a cost of $595,682. Staff is still recommending purchasing the Western Star unit based on its immediate availability, the superior safety features that we discussed at the last meeting that will prevent costly equipment repairs over the other competitors' models, as well as the improved operator controls. There is a cost difference about $4,500 between the 2 units, but given the ongoing costly repairs that we've seen, we feel the difference in that cost will be quickly made up in that period of time. This purchase is fully funded through our sewer equipment program, or I'm sorry, our water and a sewer equipment replacement fund, specifically for these needs, and based on the current price, it is fully funded.
Great. Any questions for staff on this one? Or comments in general?
What did you say about $4,500? What was that?
The difference between the unit that's in stock and ordering the other Vector unit that wouldn't be available till Q1.
Between 1 and 2, basically, on the list.
Other questions or comments? All right, could we have a roll call, please, son?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
No.
Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We'll continue on to finance. Trustee Lanisa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve the accounts payable list for October 27th, 2025 in the amount of $1,870,043.31.
Second.
Great. We'll give it to Trustee Lanisa, or not, Trustee Forsythe. Any discussion on the bills list? All right, then could we have a roll call, please?
Aye.
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 All right, and that motion carries. We'll continue on to new business. We've got a number of exciting presentations, and I don't mean that facetiously. It's where the work gets done. So our first one is the ADA transition plan. So this will be spearheaded by Brian Jonas, our Assistant Village Administrator, with his backup being Kristen Meal, our Director of Development and Engineering Services, as well as our consultants. So a lot of effort and work went into this. Excited to see the results.
Yeah, it's 13 months in the making. It's hard to believe, but with me tonight, I have the village's consultant for Trulian Planning. It's always hard to say. Don Kostalik and George Perkins from CMAP. So without CMAP's involvement, this project was fully funded by them and supported. Don Kostalik is going to lead the presentation, but I did just want to give them a shout out just for the process, for the community engagement, for staff education. So there's already been work that's been done to adopt policies back in December of last year to formally create grievance processes, designate myself in my position as the ADA coordinator. But just the efforts that they led with our staff and community through our steering committee meetings, our engagements out in the field, taking a deeper look into accessibility issues within the village. I think we're in a great spot to get this plan on the books and to formulate some of our processes for residents to submit more kind of information to us to evaluate things in regards to accessibility issues of the village, and also just provide a better reporting basis ongoing. So I'll have Don come up and he'll go through this slide, and then if there's questions, we can answer.
Great. While you guys are coming up, thank you to CMAP again for fully funding this. It's always nice to have someone else pay for the study that's going to tell us to spend more money on things. And I say that slightly jokingly, but it does make a difference to make it a little bit
Oh, my
easier.
thunder, I was going to say that, but yeah, thank you again to the village for allowing us to partner with you guys. I want to give a special thanks to Karen and Kristen at the Public, thank you, Public Works and Engineering Department, as well as Brian at the Village Administrator and our consultant Don. And so keep an eye out for other technical assistance projects we have at CMAP. And Don, I'll give it off to you.
I guess we'll start the excitement you talked about. Mayor, again, for the record, Don Kostelek was.
Just put it a little bit closer. Sorry, the mics are.
Yeah, Don Kostelek.
The budget of
Trivia
fix
and
those
planning
headphones.
there. Yeah, and I will echo some of those things. A little bit of background on this. ADA requirements. ADA is 35 years old this year, and with that came a requirement that any public agency, whether it's a park district, library district, school district, village, city, with more than 50 employees, is essentially required to turn a mirror on itself and go, how are we doing? What are our barriers to accessibility within the things that we as an agency manage? And the second part is then a plan, a transition plan for how you intend to transition those facilities and infrastructure to meet the requirements of ADA. You guys are one of the first 7 in the region to go pick me over almost a couple hundred that need to do this in the region, and CMAP is funding it. So again, you guys are also a little bit of the guinea pigs. So thanks for taking that risk on it. As Brian said, we've been working on this for about 14 months with a kickoff. And I want to provide a little bit of background on that and stand for questions, but I know you have a busy agenda tonight, so I will do my best for that. One, as Brian mentioned, hey, do we have the policies in place? And that's an ADA coordinator, an ADA notice, a grievance procedure. And you guys opted to also pass an effective communication policy that also details that. You did that last December in the throes of this, so check that box. But in that, you also set a good example for CMAP to point other communities to, because the number of communities that don't have these policies in place, you were proactive, adopted it before we were even a third of the way through this plan, and we're able to use that with other communities we're working with to do that. So that is one of the pieces on the policy side that you did, and we'll talk about the self-evaluation and transition plan in a little more detail. Just a little bit about Roselle and why this stuff is important outside of the ADA requirements. Roughly 1 in 12 of your residents reports having a disability, and if we think about somebody with a spouse or family or others, you can at least double that number in terms of the number of people that are impacted if they come across a barrier, whether it's accessing a business, a park in a park district facility, the library, or your streets. 2 out of 3 of those reporting a disability are also over the age of 65. And I know as I've aged, I thought I've temporarily without a disability of that. If we may all be experiencing that at some point in our lives. In terms of the connections we made through this, kudos to the village staff for promoting this in your newsletters and on your social media. These are not the type of projects that draw hordes of people to public input meetings like you might have on more visible and controversial ones. So we're happy that at least getting about 80 survey responses in addition to about 9 people that attended the meetings and others. That's may seem low, but it's not atypical for this subject matter for that. Next slide. So just a little bit about what we did process-wise. One, we looked at where the census data is telling us in a place like Roselle, the highest proportions are of people with disabilities, people over the age of 65, people that might not have access to a vehicle. Those are all in the very in-depth report. But as you can see from this census tract map, the darker color being those that have the highest percentage. So that northeast sector, really north of the railroad tracks and east of Roselle Road, really had the highest concentration of population across many factors, but the disability one stood out. We used that along with the detailed analysis and measurements we took on every sidewalk and curb ramp in the village, as well as looking at popular destinations, public destinations, to try to identify what your priority projects would be to start implementing this. So that's kind of where those came from, a combination of those factors, as well as where we received public input on that. So overall, if you want to get into the weeds in the data set, certainly more than 2,000 different attributes in there, mostly curb ramps, about 2,000 curb ramps in the village that we now have detailed measurements for, and also looked at almost 150 miles of sidewalks. The heat map you see on the right is where we overlay everything in the data we collected: curb ramps, sidewalk conditions. If you have a driveway, sidewalk that crosses the driveway, you might get very steep slopes that could pull someone toward the street. And where you see in that map, the more intense purple colors are where there was just a higher concentration of facilities that might need attention to make them accessible. In general, that's in kind of the eastern half of the village And the northern part, that's not atypical in terms of those are your older parts of the community, so your infrastructure's going to be a little bit over, or a little bit older. Next slide, please. So with that, once we overlaid everything and started to make sense, we've identified about 16 overall routes within Roselle that had a combination of public input, need from an accessibility standpoint, close to destinations, and a population that might be more in need for that. The purpose of that was to say, hey, these are our tiered projects. These are the ones we intend to implement, and we're going to start with what we would call Tier 1. Kudos to your Public Works and Kristen's staff, because they looked closely at the routes that we identified and said, hey, these are also a selection of streets that we're going to be resurfacing in the next 5 to 7 years. So that combination of 16 projects and routes that they were resurfacing really combined to be the first tier of projects for implementing. And for the most part, that's going to be fixing sidewalks, fixing some curb ramps. Overall, your system is actually in really good shape compared to a lot of places we work. You have a pretty aggressive and well-funded sidewalk or concrete repair program that I think is why that system is in good shape. So a lot of it is like nibbling around the edges and just correcting stuff. Add 10 years of Chicago winters to new infrastructure, add a couple of corners where trucks are turning across, as you've probably seen, and you can see where the damage would hit for that. But overall, you're in good shape and able to really accomplish your highest priorities in what right now is planned to be the next 5 to 7 years of your street resurfacing. Everything you said, Mayor, about pending budgets and capital improvement plans, that mileage may change. But within a plan like this, the important thing is to say from an ADA perspective, these are our priorities. Sitting here today, this is what we intend to do in the next 5 to 7 years, and real life is going to get in the way of that as you make budgetary decisions. The important thing to do is as those things change or new information is learned, document that, update the plan, and move forward with confidence. That also helps shield you from a legal liability standpoint if there were to be claims, which is another component of this. Next slide. When we look at those projects, the ones in kind of the reddish or orange were those top tiers that Kristen and Matt in Public Works said, hey, these are ones that we think we're going to need to resurface, so we will combine those. Really that area up in the north central part labeled as number 7, that's a collection of streets within that particular neighborhood, knowing that there's some pavement conditions on the streets that they were saying we're going to get to multiple streets up there, so you get multiple ADA related improvements. As you look at this list, there are some other things, or this map, that came out in the public input really related to accessibility and crossings on routes managed by IDOT or the counties, which are not technically your responsibility. The good part is with the Irving Park Road project and the grants and everything, and I know there's still some things to go through with that, that will address a major one that we heard from a lot of people. We were also, because of individual feedback on this from a man with a vision disability, able to get IDOT to upgrade some of the pedestrian push buttons, particularly at Maple and Irving Park, with their recent project. So again, a way, I hope that's a testament that this process and the input gave you through CMAP a direct line to them and hopefully got something a little bit better than you might have gotten otherwise. So again, a good example for us to use elsewhere in the region. The other 2 tiers you see up there, again, longer term, your mileage may vary. And again, probably by the time you get done with Tier 1 and maybe Tier 2, you're going to have 10 more years of infrastructure aging and your priorities may change. And that's really, we recommend, hey, let's go back in about a decade, take a look at this, see where we're at, see what our needs are, and move forward with that. A couple other wins on this, just a small one out on, I'm blanking on the street name. I want to say it's Pine. Here we had something we took during our kickoff meeting of here's these little things, these little sidewalk gaps. And it's even better when 10 months later, consider and go, here's the before, here's the after, here's the difference this is making. Again, just wanted to call that out for us moving forward in other projects we work on. We can go see what Roselle is doing and use you as an example of that.
Rather be the good example.
Yes,
So
exactly. Some other recommendations, certainly the infrastructure and the public works side of that is important, But hey, if you're getting redevelopment on some streets, let's make sure that those requirements are in place to make sure if there's non-compliant infrastructure and you have the authorities to require, say, the redevelopment of a parcel to upgrade that sidewalk or that curb ramp to those standards, as well as programmatic things, things like work zones and snow management and all of that also have an impact on the accessibility of the sidewalks. And we made some recommendations for the village to consider, both for training and other things as you guys move along with that. I mentioned the update already, and then just certainly, hopefully this project and the inroads with CMAP can also help with future requests, particularly to IDOT and the counties for things that might not be an ADA issue, but certainly pedestrian crossings of Roselle Road where there aren't existing signals, and up by Turner Park. We know that's something that's coming about and being talked about. So where we've identified other things in here and it's in an ADA plan, use that to your advantage in making requests to those agencies. Use that to your advantage when pursuing grants, and maybe that gives you a leg up on some of the competition out there for those same grants there. So with that, I will certainly stand for any questions. I know Brian also had just kind of what's the next step in terms of bringing this back for formal adoption.
Any questions from the board?
Looks really like a great 10-year plan.
And reasonable, I would say. What's nice is I think we had, to your point, good collaboration with staff to make sure that we were able to, in the best case scenario, take the public feedback and mirror it up with our capital plans where we can find those win-win scenarios. But I think it really helps us understand and put this on paper, which I think is far less intimidating than we might have thought it would be. So it's nice that we have this to answer those questions that come up. But Trustee Domke?
I have a property where I built a ramp. ADA compliance. I didn't have to. Well, I gotta tell you that even though the cost was kind of high, when I saw the one person that needed it, it really, I almost wept because it was so great to see that they had accessibility to something that they truly wanted to do and they could do it on their own.
Yeah.
That's worth $1 million as far as I'm concerned.
Appreciate that. And I would always say, in the spirit of ADA, if you're a community that may be of a size, hey, we get an individual request, it's to help a person. If that means it leapfrogs a priority there, feel confident doing that, because that's very much in the spirit of the law and it can have those changes on someone's daily lives. The other thing I'll say, just to wrap up, where you might look at a snapshot of, hey, if you were to go out tomorrow and fix everything, it would cost this amount. You can never actually achieve that simply because of aging and changes in infrastructure. So I would echo that. In a lot of places I've done the work, you have a system that's in really good shape. I've worked in a community half your size where we're saying you've got 500 corners that have never had a curb ramp and never been put in. And they're certainly facing a very different reality and financial future. So the leadership here and the examples that are set, in my professional opinion, are really good. And as I've said a couple of times, CMAP is already using some of those as good practices for other smaller cities in the region.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Brian, do you want to come up and give us the next steps about what to expect here on out?
Yeah, so a part of your packet is the executive summary of the plan. The full plan is in final draft mode as well. That'll be placed on a future agenda. And then, like I said, I think it's just staff formalizing the plan and actually operationalizing it. So my goal is to kind of use village technology to offer a better platform for residents to submit, requests as they come in, so we can manage whether it's grievances about an existing issue, like Don mentioned, just to keep the plan alive, keep these things and processes moving effectively, and report back on an annual basis on the progress that we're making.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. We'll continue on. We have a presentation regarding the bids and approval of a contract for electrical supply for streetlights in various village facilities with the lowest providers, subjected to, I'm sorry, I should be asking for a motion. Is that correct, Jason, for this one? Or are we doing the discussion first? Okay.
Yeah, if you want him to present first and then kind of ask any questions, then maybe make the motion.
Perfect. Sounds great. Well, then we'll have a presentation first from the assistant finance director, George Pappas. Sorry, words are escaping me tonight.
Thank you, Mayor.
We're not even halfway through this, so.
All right, tonight we're going to go over energy costs with you and the contracts that we have. We have 3 energy supply contracts approaching their expiration dates. Our natural gas contract expires on November 30th, and we have 2 electric contracts that expire on December 26th. The reason we have 2 electric contracts is one is for our streetlights, and the other is for all the various other facilities in town, metro station, pumping stations, wastewater plants, things like that. The reason those are separate contracts is the streetlights do not pay what's called capacity charges, so they get a beneficial rate. That's why we do 2 separate contracts for those. Staff's been working with Satori Energy. They're our energy consultant to get proposals in from energy providers. We'll start with gas tonight. The village current natural gas agreement is with Symmetry Energy, and it's our first ever natural gas supply contract. Throughout that contract life, the contract term, NICOR direct pricing was lower than we had in that contract, so it really wasn't beneficial to the village to go into that contract. In the agenda tonight, Satori obtained 5 supplier quotes for natural gas, with Symmetry, our current vendor, supplying the lowest quote. In your guys' agenda, it's at 49.3 cents per therm, and then I got updated pricing this morning. It's at 48.5 cents per therm, so it dropped just under a cent, or just a little bit below a cent on the 6 days that you received the agenda. Moving on to electric, the village current electric contracts are both with Constellation Energy, and those have been favorable. Both contracts have consistently been at or below ComEd direct pricing, so we did very well with those contracts. Satori obtained 6 quotes for both contracts, 6 for the streetlights and 6 for the other various locations. With Constellation coming in at the lowest bidder for the streetlights, and a company called Freeport Energy being the lowest bidder for the other various accounts that we have in town. I'll just kind of go over pricing real quick here. In your guys' agenda, the various facility pricing was 6.907 cents per kilowatt. Satori is estimating a 36-month savings of approximately $26,000. Updated pricing this morning went from 6.907 in the agenda to 6.972, very slight increase over the last 6 days. And the streetlight accounts, streetlights were at 4.47 in your agenda, and those went up just slightly again, 4.62 cents. Annual 36-month savings of approximately $3,800 according to Satori, the consultant. One thing I do want to note is in the agenda, I did have a note in there about our current supplier, Constellation. They would match the best pricing. We went back this morning to get updated pricing. They no longer are agreeing to that. So if we do move forward, it would most likely be with Freeport Energy to the various accounts in town. Moving on to recommendation. So on the gas contract, staff is recommending not pursuing a new gas contract due to the unfavorable experience we had over the past 36 months. Just kind of a quick snapshot, the village rate with Symmetry currently is 6.15 cents per therm, while the NICOR 12-month average was 4.23 cents per therm. In addition, the village receives a lump sum natural gas franchise fee from NICOR for use of our right-of-ways. That franchise fee on an annual basis offsets about 80% of our costs. So we don't have as much exposure on the gas side of things. Regarding the electric, staff is recommending that the village move forward with a new electric supply contracts. Electric bids are typically good for 24 hours. So staff is also recommending that the board authorize the village administrator to work with Satori Energy to obtain new bids and execute a 36-month electric supply contract at a rate not to exceed 5 cents per kilowatt for the streetlights and 7.4 cents for the other village accounts.
So let's take it, let's separate them out. So as far as on the natural gas, any conversation, discussion, or questions about going with staff's recommendation to not contract it out and ride the NICOR rates on the market?
Makes sense.
NICOR.
Yeah, NICOR, yeah. Consensus on that one is, okay, all right, yeah, that was easy. And then as far as the electricity, any questions or concerns about the results of the bid that was obtained on that one?
Who was the best choice?
Us.
Freeport Energy for the various, and the Constellation will do the streetlights. They're currently our vendor for that one.
And they're the lowest bidder or the lowest cost.
But yeah, for streetlights, it would be Constellation and Symmetry for the other accounts that we have.
Yeah, okay. I would go with the lowest.
Okay, so we're good with the contract then? So in that case, I'd like to entertain a motion to authorize the village administrator to obtain bids and approve a contract for electricity supply for streetlights and various village facilities, the lowest providers, subject to village attorney review.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Well, okay, I had a motion. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you. Del Pentagon. Could we have a roll call, please?
Aye.
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 That motion carries. And that was my idea, Jason. I botched that up. So, hey, whatever, we're all good. So, I said there's no reason for us to hear this 2 meetings in a row. So let's do new business and vote. But I got my own self confused now. So, we'll keep the good times rolling with our 2025 special events presentation. So, Chief of Police Rob Beretta will be, taking the podium for this one. I like how you went center aisle. You couldn't walk around there. You had to do the long walk.
And I was making an entrance.
Your walk-up music didn't play though, so we'll have to discuss that with the staff about getting that right next time.
Have it in the budget.
Audio upgrades.
Part of it.
New lights.
So we, on behalf of staff, we wanted to thank everyone from the village board all the way to all the attendees that attended our 2025 event season. Very well attended. We accomplished the board's goal of having a event almost every weekend in the summer. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of each week in the summer. Wednesday was the French Market. Most Thursdays were the Park District concerts. And then Friday was the vehicle show down at the Legion lot. We, as a staff, successfully collaborated between all the volunteers, all of us staff together, and the event organizers to make sure that the events went off without a hitch. We are almost there. We have Turkey Trot and we have the Winterfest left. And we took a lot of our lessons from the year and we added them into we just had a Winterfest planning meeting. We added that in there. It didn't come cheap as far as time and money. As if you look, the successful collaboration of 588 total volunteer hours. That is between the police department VIPs and the fire department EMAs. We also had over 1,700 staff hours involved in the process of planning and staffing and doing these events. Brian will cover what we're going to go over for tonight, and we're going to kind of team. It's going to be a rhetorical dancing with the stars here before him and I. So we're going to work this out.
Yeah, so we're going to cover just kind of a year at a glance, just kind of what were the highlights of the success, kind of sticking to the operational needs of areas that we'd like to improve, what we did well, and seeking some direction specifically related to a few policy discussions that we're hoping to get cleared up. Ultimately, we want to bring these things back to the board for formal approval and more discussion, but we'll hit the highlights on kind of what we're actually seeking just to make the special event management process more efficient for staff, but also for event organizers, just to save as much time as possible and just to get these events off without a hitch, like Chief said.
All right, so just at a glance, overall, general community feedback, overwhelmingly positive. I worked many of these events, and I can't tell you the number of times people came up to us and told us what a great job was done on the event. They loved this space. They loved coming out. A personal note, my daughter came out with her friend several times. She loved what we were doing. She thought it was terrific, watching the concerts and, grabbing a beer and then grabbing some food off the food truck. So overwhelmingly, the feedback was positive. A couple hitches. We had some trash management for the bigger issues or for the bigger events. We had some trash management issues, which we immediately had addressed with the organizers. And then the 14th South Prospect building bore the brunt of a lot of what we were doing. And we actually met with the HOA and mitigated some of those and some of those concerns. And one of the things for Winterfest was when we had our Winterfest meeting, the very first meeting, we were able to take a lot of those lessons that we learned throughout the year and push those to Winterfest so that it limits the impact on that 14th South building. 2025, we had a lot of events. So if you look in 2024, we had 21, but in 2025, we had 35. You add the French markets, and then you add the 2 external events. So we had Polypalooza and we had Harvest Fest. And then we had 2 additional Park District concerts. So we had a lot more events this year. So it put a lot of strain on staff. This here is a calendar so that everyone can see. If you look, the burgundy squares are our village events. Those are ones that we co-branded with organizers. If you look, if there's a star in the burgundy, that means we actually had a meeting, because most of the time we had 2 to 3 meetings pre
And then we had one post meeting, which you go after, we called an after action meeting. So that means you go and you talk about what went right, what we could fix. So some of those we doubled up on. The beige right there is when we had a meeting, just a meeting. And then the green was an external event. So that is an event that somebody brought to us that we worked with and put on. The Lake Park High School games, we actually put this on the slide because although we didn't put it in our overall cost, it became significant because we post 4 officers plus 2 SROs at Lake Park's request for Lake Park games. And then the fire department actually puts an ambulance there. And so that is a significant commitment of resources. So if we were to try to do an event on one of those days, we just wouldn't have enough people. And then finally, as you look at that, the pink just shows that there's still a lot of available weekends left, and we'll talk about it a little later. But this here was a learning experience for this year, and we learned a lot, but it did stretch us.
All right, so this is a graph that just shows in total operational impact from a cost perspective for all staff time included in the special event management process, starting from conceptualization, working with organizers, all the way through setup, tear down, staffing, and after action reports. So you can see it's a big sticker kind of shock price, but we thought this was a good way to begin to track just how much time is spent overall on managing special events from a staff perspective. I look at kind of overtime and regular hours from a perspective that if we were to maintain the same schedule next year, there's obviously controllable costs and there's uncontrollable costs. So you can tell that PD kind of takes the brunt of the amount of time dedicated to those hours from a staffing perspective, because most special events that require village services, they're likely getting a liquor license, therefore they're generating the IEP, they're scheduling all the meetings, and then they're staffing that event as well. The same is true for Public Works. We do whatever we can to mitigate OT when we can. That's why we set up the French markets during regular business hours, but there's still overtime when it comes to special event management, especially on weekend events that we have. And fire. I just want to give a shout out just from the safety aspect and emergency preparedness. All these hours, they're great to look at. These numbers are great. What's non-quantifiable, I think, is just what comes out of those meetings, what comes out of the lessons learned, which for us, it came to more enforcement mechanisms, better documentation for vendors and organizers to just host more safe and effective events. So fire helped with kind of mobile and food truck management, documentation. Finance provided a lot of that documentation to external vendors. So we just thought that this would be a good snapshot and then something reoccurring that we could bring back year over year, knowing that we're always working to be more efficient with our time, using technology, using just better processes, and getting to the direction at the end of this presentation as well.
Yeah, so our successes here, as I had alluded to earlier, was the cooperation and all of the communication that increased from the very beginning. What we were doing at the very beginning of our special event season to the very end, we got much, much better at working our way through these events. Police department, as Brian mentioned, we were kind of like the hub of everything. We handle the IAP, we staff it for security, and then we organize the meetings and go back and forth with the organizers, kind of help them through the process. Finance was huge. When we talk about food vendors and reaching out to them and finding out who the food vendors were and making sure that they understand what kind of taxes they have to remit, and also what type of certifications and insurance and things that they need to bring to the event, so that when the fire department goes through to do their inspections, everything is in order. Fire department also, they're with their primary function of being EMS, taking care of people at the event if something happens, and they also backstop us as a public safety agency, get a second look at our IAP and where we're putting the street, the Meridian barriers on the street. So they look at it from a public safety aspect as well. And then last but not least, Public Works did a lot of heavy lifting literally this year. They did a lot of the Meridian barriers. They put it up. The event doesn't go off unless Public Works puts up the barriers and builds the security box for us. So we would get together in these meetings and we would talk about the standard layout. And we talked about that at one of my earlier presentations during the summer about, hey, putting together some templates and standardized layouts. We give all that information to Public Works and then they put the map together. they make it, the templates make it way more efficient because now you know exactly, what the cost is going to be for a small, medium, and large layout. Our partnerships, Flood Brothers was phenomenal. Anytime we needed restrooms, we needed hand washing stations, we needed extra dumpsters, Brian or Public Works would get on the phone and they would be there. And then we also talked and worked with Mr. Natural so that then for extra cleaning. So the next day after a big event, you don't even know that we had an event going on because Mr. Natural came in and cleaned things up. And then a giant success was this is the first events that were hosted on the municipal campus by external organizers, which is what we wanted. We wanted people to bring a couple events downtown. So we throw up a couple slides here. These are just sample costs for an external event. This one is Pollyanna, a real long event, as you could see. We used the medium template, which was both of our sound stages or band shells, and we did not charge Pollyanna that lower right number there. But because of the anticipated number of people that were going to go there and be there and the length of the event, we staffed it heavy with officers and a sergeant. And of course, you see what Public Works putting up the barricades and the signage. And then this one here is the Harvest Fest. Shorter event, small layout, much cheaper to put on. Some of that stuff for Chief and DC with the sergeant, some of that was planning. We just threw that in there so you know that we are involved in some of this planning on the front end. When you get an organizer, you want to make sure that you work with them and work all the way through from the beginning to the end with them. And then, once they've done the event a few times, then they kind of understand what's necessary. And then what are our planned improvements for next year? So we're trying to incrementally make this safe space, space safer for people coming downtown. So what we were doing is we worked in a partnership with the Park District to get a lightning strike detection device. We can put it downtown. As everyone knows, you went to the events this summer, the weather was crazy. I mean, 1 minute was bright and shiny, and then the next time it was a thunderstorm for a little bit. So this will make it way safer because we will be able to make our decisions based on that device that's going to be right here downtown. And then we're going to improve our special event planning process. We're already working with fire and GIS to do a capacity analysis for our standard event layouts. So when we talk to organizers and they say, I want to do a small event layout, we can say, well, if you're going to do a small event layout, this is about how many people can fit in that area. So it makes it more efficient. And then we're going to utilize Cloud Permit as a starting point for special events. From beginning to end, we already have Cloud Permit, but it's going to be extremely efficient to use next year. All the permits, all of the certifications, everything can be entered into Cloud Permit. It's going to eliminate the need for emails because the organizer is going to be able to enter everything in Cloud Permit, and each department is going to actually be able to dispo or disposition whatever that is that came in, look at it, and send that email back to the organizer, which would lead to less, hopefully less meeting. And then finally, as far as special events, we're looking at a liquor license update that'll make it easier for groups like Main Street Merchants to hold events.
Okay, so now we move into some of the areas of concern, which are really just the operational impacts that we experienced this summer, especially during the summer months on just day-to-day operations as all these meetings, all the planning efforts, all the staffing that's required, all the street closures, it impacts every department's general day-to-day operations. And we don't want to kind of gloss over the fact that there's other programs, there's other service deliveries that we know are vital to what we do every day. And while we enjoy special events and we know how important they are for the community, and we know it's our goal to accomplish, we also want to do it the most efficient way possible to not result in any staff burnout, to not result in any negative kind of responses to residents on other programming and services that we deliver. So obviously our goal is to always proactively address the issue to minimize that impact, but we are kind of bringing up to the attention of the board tonight just kind of some of the areas of concern that we've heard from our staff and also experienced just from being a part of the process. Some kind of specific examples or things I could look at as external threats or just competing events from an emergency preparedness perspective. So for competing events like the football games that Chief mentioned, or just any other competing event that may result in a negative response time for ambulance and other life safety measures. We just, we haven't been in that situation per se, but it's there when the events are scheduled on the same day, or when they're backed up on weekend hours as well. And then just transient population. So as we continue to kind of market the Petal Plaza, the Portrait Plaza area, while we continue to modify our layouts to bring more people in from other communities to kind of enjoy these special events, we just know more people in town is going to have more risk included. And it's just something to be mindful of. Okay, so we'll move into just board direction for tonight. And again, this list isn't exhaustive. I think we're going to have to do our work to bring back a formal policy to the board to have better discussion. But there's some main areas of direction that we'd like to get from you tonight. And we'll go through each bullet point one by one and move through it that way. So first, we just want to talk about what we would recommend is a consolidation of the French Market and the summer concert series on the same day. And while there's less summer concerts that there are French markets, having them on the separate days, it pretty much doubles the work for really Public Works and for our people that set up the street closures, make the event safe, and then staff the event as well. So we did have a preliminary meeting with both the Park District and the French Market Company. Most recently, the French Market Company just got back a survey to me from the vendors that participate on Wednesdays. And we have positive feedback from them saying that the majority would stay if we moved them to Thursdays.
So what? I'm sorry, if you what?
Yeah, so the majority of the vendors that participate in the French Market, we wanted to poll them to see, hey, if we switched this to Thursday and did it on the same night of the concert, would you still be able to come? A lot of them have other commitments. They may be going to other markets on the same day. But the majority came back, said that they wouldn't leave our market. There were a few that actually said that they enjoyed Roselle's Market, so they would actually switch from their Thursday schedule and actually come into town for us. So the feedback has been great. It would require an amendment to the agreement. But like I said, the French Market Company is willing to do that. I think it's a good idea to do it. I think it helps staff. And I just think also from a transient perspective, I don't think that they're competing events. I think actually that we could see probably more growth. And the French Market still has that individualism while there's not summer concerts going on the days that we have the market on a weekly basis. So we'll stop right there. I can answer any additional questions regarding that point.
Any thoughts on that first recommendation?
Great idea.
Trustee Lanisa?
I believe I talked to Jason about it before, but I think that's a great idea because you're going to bring the people that are at the French Market and stay for the concert. You're going to doubling up on that, having less staff time and having a greater turnout, I think, for both sides of this.
Yeah, I think this year was Operation Saturate the Market, and I think next year's idea is like, let's go deep, right? And I think that you're gonna get a lot of cross-pollination to your point. And I also think it will help reduce the impact on the condo residents nearby, because then we're just doing one street closure a week instead of potentially two, and I think it'll be, I can't wait to see the staff cost numbers for next year with this strategy in place too, so. Trustee Domke?
Would you relocate the French Market further south to get away from 14?
No, I don't think we need to. We talked about it, and that is our next step, is to kind of bring everything back, operationalize it. What would that look like? What would the logistical changes need to be? But we kind of discussed internally, and we don't think from a noise perspective, it's far enough away. Actually, even with the scheduling of the concerts themselves, the French Market sometimes likes to play their own music. They're going to have about 2.5 hours to do that unless the concert starts early. So I think it's a win-win for everybody, and both parties seem to be happy. And
One other thing, can you have the porta potties a little later in the year? Can you keep them on I guess we would vote on.
we do. I mean, we
Yeah.
have the temporary one that's kind of in the alley at 8,000 miles that's going to be there.
I think you put them away before we had our Harvest Fest, which was the 21st or something like that of September. And the weather's really great at the end of September, better than May,
Yeah, I think that goes to the next recommendation, but it's a good point.
I just want to stop there. So it looks like we have consensus on pursuing the date change on the French Market for next year. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So let's make that happen. That seems like an easy, quick win.
Make it happen.
Yeah, porta potties is not a great subject.
It's a good point though, but it kind of goes into my next bullet point here. So what we're looking to do is kind of hopefully maintain another maintenance year for next year by getting direction to only house an additional 2 external events that require village services. So the reason behind that is just, again, it's the total impact on operations, day-to-day, total cost spent. But it's also, I think, next year with bringing this policy back forth, making our permit process more streamlined for event organizers and for staff. I think next year is still a learning year. That's something that, we understand that if we get, a lot of marketability or people coming to us, we can re-engage with that recommendation. But for now, I'll just stop and kind of get the feedback or just temperature from the board on.
So questions or thoughts from the board on this one?
That's
Trustee Delapenna.
in addition to what you did this year?
Yeah, so think of, Harvest Fest, Polypalooza, like 2 more of those.
What would you do if you had like 6 wanting to come? Would you tell?
We'd probably come back and talk about it.
Trustee Delapenna.
That's kind of
Depends
like,
on-
we-
I think it depends on where they are.
it's kind of like why we built it, in a way.
Well, it is, but if I go back to the calendar, or if you scroll back to that in your packet, I think that's why we showed the pink was kind of, that's the threat. We don't know. I think there's things that can mitigate that, like the next bullet point, talking about the blackout dates, talking about the time requirement for people to submit permit applications requiring village services for events. But again, I'll stick to this kind of point and we could talk about it, but we have a lot of room, a lot of open weekends. We don't know if there's going to be more external event organizers that are going to come to us like Harvest Fest or like Polypalooza. But, we are still learning and we don't want to get into a situation where we're kind of caught off guard.
I'm inviting Foo Fighters, okay? If they come out,
We will always make an exception, I think, for.
Okay. I'm going to come at this a little bit differently. I don't think it's always about what we want to put on or what people want to put on. A lot of the residents, I agree 100%. Nothing but positive comments about the space and the events we put on. Towards the end of the season, though, they were starting to rumble a little bit about fest burnout. There was too many things going on, too close together with other things. So we might not even want to put any more on and just take a year of just hold where we're at.
We'll accept that.
Trustee Trejo.
Yeah, just to piggyback, that's what I was thinking too. I think if we're gonna add anything, I would say 1, but I think given the situation with staffing this year, I think it'd be good to kind of just see like how next year goes with the consolidation of French Market. If we want to leave like 1 additional one just to leave us a little wiggle room, or we could always come back and talk about it, but like, I feel like 2 is just too much, 2 extras.
Trustee Domke.
and I know you didn't want to plan it for the Harvest Fest and then the open house back to back. But on the bright side, it did work. And, we didn't, as far as I know, there was no major catastrophe, right? Okay.
That's a
think-
third bullet. That's a third bullet point. We'll get there.
I think, there's mixed feelings on it. I think one thing I would just throw out there that I think could be interesting is like, as we refine and we have real cost numbers associated with it, I think one thing that would be interesting is and this may come up on the next slide, but I think I think you hear the feedback from our group. I don't know if we need to have a hard number about what we're gonna add or not add, but I think I would say in the permitting process, depending on whether you're small, medium, or large, I think we should have transparent pricing. And what I mean by that is saying, hey, with what you're requesting, the village is going to incur X number of costs and we're expecting you to pay. And they're signing, things can fluctuate, obviously. But I think whatever we're comfortable, whether it's an 80% of what the estimated cost is or whatnot, I think publishing that and having them sign an agreement that says that they're committed to paying that may also help us get the feedback of, yes, I'm interested in an event, but I don't know if I want to pay that. And that can also help us, if someone's willing to pay the costs, I don't honestly mind if we have 4 more events as long as they're paying for it, right? I think where we have issues up front, and this is not targeting any single group because everyone does it, but like, hey, can you do me a salad and give me a discount, right? Like, I think we get a lot of this remorse on the back end of like, I didn't know how expensive it was. So I wonder if we promote our costs more transparently and have a somewhat firm commitment, that might help us regulate the market in the direction that we want to, perhaps.
Yeah, that's why we put the slides up for the examples too, is exactly how we're thinking the process going is we've had those discussions with event organizers and we've run into it kind of later in the process where it should be upfront. They should know at least our policy. They should know how the cost is calculated. I mean, it's currently in our code now, but I think just having a better application process may help mitigate some of those risks. But yeah.
And a well-defined small, medium, and large. Because the small means, in my mind, it's not closing Prospect Street. That would be the smallest. You'd have the parking lot and you'd have the the Pedal Plaza. You wouldn't even have to close the street. That, to me, that's a small one, and that would be a lot less expense to the village for that.
Yeah, so the issue with that is people run out of room, you know, as we had with Harvest Fest.
Well, you'd have to say, oh, no more than this many people if it's that footprint.
Yeah, and so then one of the issues that we had also is that, to your point about, hey, it worked out, which is true. So you have a very committed staff. Everyone here that works, you know, for the village, they love to work for the village. So we'll literally knock ourselves out to put on events. But it does take a toll on everyone because we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep coming in. I know the DCs, the fire, Public Works, we're all in. We're all here for Roselle all the time, and it's not cliche. But when we get to a point where we have event like Trustee Trejo and Trustee Delapenna said, hey, look, once you get to a point where it's starting to affect, you know, the morale or people don't want to take those, you know, those details and stuff, even if somebody is covering the cost, it starts to wear on staff right at the end. And I do like the idea of having one in the back pocket, like, hey man, if it's the perfect event, like, holy cow, we really wanted to bring Foo Fighters. We really wanted to bring the Foo Fighters. So, I mean, if
do
it's
it.
something like that, like, okay, hey,
Clock, Wayne.
I
you're
got
on
it.
the clock.
Okay, then I'll work.
We say that
Public
5
record.
more times, the public's gonna be in here in 6 months asking where the Foo
Putting on
Fighter
Facebook
concert
video.
is, so let's be careful.
Yeah, for sure. But for something like that, yeah, I like the idea of having one like in the back pocket like that, the perfect event.
Sounds like you have some alignment on it, and there's different strategies we can use though to kind of, but I don't know if we'll have to fine tune the number, but why don't we continue on for this conversation on the other ones?
All good, though.
Yeah. Blackout dates. So this is kind of in conjunction with the finalization of the consolidation of the French Market and Summer Concert Series. So because of weather delays that happened this year, because of the just crazy weather we had over the summer, we're just proposing now if they do get consolidated, it would, you know, be on Thursdays that we were looking to do this, just 2 weeks after the concert series is over, after French Market season, just to block out those days. So
Everyone aligned with that one?
we can't have any reservation.
Okay,
on the
we're good.
spots.
We're good on that one.
And then the last one is what Wayne was talking about. So limiting events that require village services to one per weekend, so that we don't have examples like Harvest Fest and the Public Safety Open House abutting each other on the weekend.
Thoughts on that one from the board? Yeah. I think there's consensus there as well. I would say that is incumbent upon, and Wayne will smile at me. I think we need to then have a calendar that's accessible then that shows things, because otherwise I think it's kind of hard for people then to just know those dates. I think that's just one thing we'd have to kind of be willing to put out there, which I know is a touchy topic, about what's available and what's not then.
Sounds good. All right, next item we're looking for direction on is the application process itself for events that require village services. We would like 6 months in advance. We put 3 to 6 months because we know things happen and it's our second year of managing this process. But the idea is that we don't get into the busy summer months. Somebody comes with an application and we have little time to prepare while we're already managing the current events on our plate. So looking for kind of feedback on that.
You back on 3 to 6 months?
I'd say 3. I'm good with 3.
3, okay.
A little long, like if you're trying to do something in the summer to get it into that, you know, you might not even be thinking about it 6 months.
Well, yeah, I agree. You might not be able to book things you might want to 6 months in advance, sometimes so, but
Well, and the organization needs 3 months to plan it right. So they should know what they want to do and present it. And that gets them going on their meetings. They have to plan the so 3 months is good.
we're gonna line on 3. So it sounds like we're gonna start with 3, which is a good win. Maybe we'll get that up to 4 for you later.
If Wayne gets Foo Fighters here next year.
That might take.
We do get, I failed to mention that it's in my memo, but we get around, you know, roughly 40,000, a little over $40,000 on revenue.
I tell you,
Right?
people, 40,000 people.
Part of that is sponsorships. I don't know how many sponsors we would need to get Foo Fighters, but failed to mention the revenue component that, you know, we do take pride in, and Winterfest is going to be a great example. We have a ton of sponsors for that event, and we'll only grow more. So the last kind of item that we're looking for direction. So this is kind of a separate policy just for the space reservations for the pedal porch and plaza. So while we're respecting people's First Amendment rights, we have ran into issues where there's just kind of a lack of policy or direction or process regarding just private use or reservations of those spaces. So we kind of mitigated that. I mean, it was great working with everybody that had an event there. We had a wedding at the pedal porch. We had library story times from the library. So things went smooth, but again, without any type of policy regarding any type of ahead schedule for application submittal, without any fees regarding what type of reservation it is. It's just really a quagmire situation and a back and forth process that takes a lot of time and a lot of management. So we're just looking for just kind of your direction on how you see those spaces being used based on the examples that I've provided. And we're just looking for a similar application process. But we know it's not going to be as heavy and burdensome because it doesn't require additional village services.
Thoughts on the board on that one? Seeing some head nodding. I think we just have to figure out a way. I would prefer, and I don't know what mechanism you guys are trying to do this, but I think we have to get those also on the calendar so people have visibility to when things are already reserved, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want there to be an extra step where staff then has to go inform and reject it because someone already booked it. So I think ideally this is something that you could pass it through from whether it's cloud permit straight to a calendar, or if there's a separate one we want to use just for this purpose, because it is a kind of a unique element of things. But I think making sure there's full transparency on whoever's booked either venue space, including the village itself, just I think is important and key to this.
Yeah, what you
Trustee Trejo.
said was just the no fee piece of it is for,
I think there should be a nominal fee, right?
that's what I'm saying, like, if it's like the library or something, or like maybe a 501.
I'm fine with like a one-time, like I'm almost thinking, and I'm riffing off here, but like it could be like a like per year fee, so the library could pay a one-time fee to reserve it unlimited, like as many times as they want to throughout the year. But like for other private events, like you're still subjected to that. So that way, if you do a wedding, you're at least paying $25. But if it's
Yeah,
library,
like we talked about.
spend $25 and you can book it all summer for.
Hey, staff time takes this much time, so you're getting a nominal fee for like the processing and like the investigation of the events and all.
I feel like at least
Yeah, I think you put no fee because we still, like, if we get a heads up that there's some type of, First Amendment verified event that's occurring, right? I think we were just saying that we would use the application process to update the calendar to show that that is already kind of reserved, even though it's for public use.
My only concern, I wonder what other people's thoughts are, and I understand the First Amendment issue, but I'm concerned if we have no fee, then I could go in if I was an organization and just say, I'm gonna book it for this time period every week because I can, and there's no fee to me. And if I don't use it, someone else that may legitimately want to use it can't get into it because there's no incentive. Like, I have no skin in the game. I'm just booking it to reserve it because I might use it, and then I don't, and now that blocks someone else from using it. So I totally respect the First Amendment thing. I don't think it should be burdensome. Like, that's where I think for like library or Main Street merchants, like be a one-time fee kind of a thing. And but I think you would probably want to have something where it's applicable when you're not exercising your First Amendment rights. Trustee Lanisa.
How far in advance, like for instance, the wedding? How far in advance did they put an application in? And will all these other events that we have for the year already be in stone so that somebody doesn't book a wedding when the village is planning on using it?
Like the public safety open house is going on, and there's like a wedding.
Well, hopefully, at least though, our stuff, anything big should be 3 months in advance now, right? And this would be 30 days in advance. So anything big should be already on the calendar based on our new policy.
And it depends.
See, no.
Well, it depends. I mean, it depends on the wedding. It depends on the event. I think we have to be very clear with what the expectations are. If somebody wants 300 people to gather on the plaza and they want a microphone, they want to use electricity, that's where the fee kicks in my opinion. That is an event. And we have kind of the layouts, the capacity ironed out so that.
So there might be,
Calendar
I guess
reads the
it's not
policy and
necessarily a fee. It's a fee based on your usage expectation then is maybe what this is more.
Yeah.
My point also is to make sure that what we want to do is blocked off the calendar before anybody else can come.
100%.
And, because if they come in 6 months in advance and we're using 3 months.
Yeah, we know what our events are for next year. We know the dates, we know everything to block out. So to your point, I think we'll mitigate that.
Any other thoughts then on this piece of it? Okay. Oh, sorry. Trustee Domke.
I think I have a question, but I don't know.
Good news is we're not voting on this one, so we got some time.
Well, a group wants to have a little meeting outdoors at, by 8,000 miles over in that area there, and they use the stage. Do they have to ask for permission to that?
Depends.
I think, if they're
What?
just, if they're just meeting at the tables, I would say no, because they're just using the public space as anyone else would, but they can't kick people off the stage then, right? If they're gonna host like
Right,
a,
okay.
they're having a bratwurst tasting, or sampling, like that's more of a private event that you might want to say, no, so you need to book it then, right?
I get it. And when you talk First Amendment rights, anyone that wants to, let's say, protest something can be there and do it without permit. But they can't bump somebody that's reserved it. I understand that.
I think you're looking at impromptu versus scheduled.
Yes, right, right. So impromptu and the First Amendment thing, I mean, I know you guys have this all figured out, how we will address that.
We will have it figured out. I mean, that's the whole point.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Other communities have gone through
There are
this.
conditions for the First Amendment right,
Yeah,
you know, we'll work with the.
public space, for
Yeah,
public space.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's really it, is
And really
kind
opposed,
in these situations where it's kind of been in between, you know, is this something that we can govern through policy and kind of push people through an application process to make it smooth, to make it
Right,
efficient,
right,
let the
right.
right people know? Or is this a use that they're allowed to use because it's public property? So
We need to have a policy of action, not reaction.
Yeah,
So once
exactly.
we get it established, we've got it.
Yeah, think about it like, if you want to have protests at parks.
Yeah,
But somebody's already has it. Birthday party. Can't go there.
right, right.
There, but if you-
Their rights too, yeah. Yeah, your right shouldn't push somebody else's right out of the way.
The baby reveal here.
Yep.
With us.
cool. So, as future considerations then?
all right, so just things that we know are upcoming. And the board is aware of some of these things because they're budgetary. But we know that with the redesign, reconstruction of the municipal campus and all the events and more capacity that is going to definitely happen with just more events going on in the downtown. There's likely going to be additional security cameras that we'll be talking about in budget discussions for fiscal year 2027, just to maintain safety and keep more eyes on our infrastructure and just the events themselves. And then we know just with ongoing developments, future developments, kind of looking to 2028 with the land swap with the library and just opportunities to just kind of continuously look at our layouts to just look at, I think of the event like the Taste of Roselle, right? If the library wasn't there, if we had more on-street parking, more surface parking in that area, you could probably pull some of those things off of Main Street, kind of closer to the plaza area. And our organizers understand that. So I think these are just things that we're evaluating. We're going to continue to evaluate, and we don't know the impact until we get there. And then alcohol management, we just put on there because we've had great success with just kind of containing where alcohol is served in the municipal campus area. But we know that we don't have enough staff or volunteers at any of the events that we staff to kind of mitigate that. And we know there's a beautification element, just an aesthetic element of putting up fences and closing areas off. And we've been just kind of successful with the open concept, but we just wanted to put that out for the board, that these are things that we think about and we don't gloss over. And then just unknown demand. So we know the demand for next year. Maybe not from a number perspective, but we know. So that's good, but just, we're always mindful of just what the impact operationally could have with increased events, so.
Any closing questions from the board on this? I would just say thank you to everyone and all the staff that put the efforts in this and even our volunteer organizations as well. And I think we had a really, really exciting year, and I'm even more excited. I'm not showing it for what next year brings as far as the learnings that we've been able to capture here and what we can apply to make this a little bit easier and less painful for everyone. So, and hopefully more cost effective. So appreciate it. Thank you. And now my favorite part of the evening. The 2026 capital improvement Plan. So we'll have Finance Director Tom Dahl presenting and our directors from Public Works and Development
And
and
engineering
Engineering Services
Okay.
backing up. So, Tom?
So I'm
the
here to
start of
make
the
a
budget
long
season.
meeting even longer, and we also are doing Dancing with the Stars.
Who's the stars and who's the pros, though? That's what I want to. Who are our ballroom dancing?
I'm
experts
neither.
in
I'm
the
not a
audience
star or a
versus
pro.
the stars.
I'm dancing with the guy on the street. Okay, so in your packet tonight is the CIP, and you know the 2026 budget preparation includes the creation of this capital improvement plan. It's a 5-year plan for general capital projects and a 5-year plan for water and sewer capital that are just combined into one document for ease of presentation. Each 5-year plan includes all the projects identified to date, the ones that we know, and the funding necessary to complete them. Some of our projects rely on grants, while others, the funding will be determined if and when the projects are completed. Water sewer capital rely on the CIS and home rule sales tax and IEPA loans for their completion. The document includes a short narrative, an income statement, and then project sheets for all of the projects that are budgeted in 2026. Just some key takeaways up on that first slide. It's about $112 million in capital projects over 5 years, with 75% of that being wastewater treatment and collection. So obviously, our 2 treatment plants, we have a lot of work going on there, and then the collection system, meaning the lift stations, the sewer, and the force mains that are needed to bring that wastewater to the 2 plants. 2026 budget year reflects total project costs and debt payments of about $27 million and revenue of about $24.5 million. So revenues under expenditures by about $2.4 million. We talked about this in July, mainly because this is the Triangle project, using reserves to complete all of those tasks, the water main replacement, sewer main replacement in that area. 2026 budget also reflects starting with about 1.7 million in available funds for general capital projects. So not the wastewater and water, but for general capital, and ending 2026 with about 3.1 million. And then also, we're always in pursuit of grant opportunities. As everybody knows, we have ITEP grants for both the pedestrian bridge and the Irving Park Road pedestrian improvements. Invest in Cook for Roselle Road pedestrian improvements. We're always looking at FEMA grants. We have our congressional project funding, which, by the way, we have gotten all the funding for Municipal Campus 2, but also we are still continuing to receive money from HUD, even though they are shut down. We put in our requests and we still get money. So there's somebody there pressing the button to allow us to get paid.
Thank goodness for that, at least.
Yes, thank you for that. And obviously, state of Illinois, we did, pursue funding for multiple projects, and we'll continue to do that, and then also through DuPage County. So we're always looking for grant opportunities to pay for our projects. So on to the plan. And so the plan consists of streets and sidewalks, buildings and grounds, stormwater, wastewater treatment, and water system. And we have annual programs under each of those, which the slide, I'm not going to go through all of them. But there are annual programs that we fund. You heard tonight, sidewalk, we do fund sidewalk replacement, $250,000 annually for that. And another point, in July, we discussed street improvement program. This CIP now includes funding 2.1 million for 2026, and then 2.25 million each year, 27 through 30, for the SIP. So we haven't increased that based on your recommendation that we received in July. This slide is a bar graph showing the vast majority is in wastewater. As I said earlier, it's about 75%. with $84 million in improvements over those 5 years, 15.5 million in streets, 9 million in water, a little under 2 million in stormwater, and then buildings at 272,000. That's very low because we do have that facility plan that is in the works to determine what needs we have for our buildings. So that will grow.
And I think the other important thing is, out of all those, stormwater is the only one, in buildings arguably, but I think stormwater is the only one we do not have a dedicated revenue source for, and that depends mostly on grants received by other agencies, whereas everything else is funded through other mechanisms. So.
Thank you. And to point, further that there is a number of dollars that we can commit to that, but we are waiting for funding. So there are dollars associated with that. It's just waiting for that funding to come through. And then finally, my last slide before I turn it over to Karen and Kristen, just showing the revenue sources. So you just saw the expenses here showing where the money is going to come from. So obviously, the largest one under general capital projects is home rule sales tax. And that was the whole point of passing that, was to provide funding for capital. And it's a little over 13 million estimated in home rule sales tax. MFT, just over 5.5 million. Our local taxes, which would be electric, telecom, and our municipal gas tax, about 5.5 million, and then other, which is minor taxes and some other interest and grants of about 2.2 million. And underneath that is water and sewer. The vast majority of those projects being funded by IEPA loans, 70 million. And then 24 million for CIS, and then 13.5 for home rule sales tax. So that's just an overview of the revenue for those 5 years, just so you can see that, match that up with the project. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kristen.
Thank you. So I'm going to try to keep this brief because not seen anything really new. A lot of this is continuation of projects that have been funded previously or things we talked about at mid-year. Buildings and grounds, these projects are typically funded through the general capital fund using utility tax revenue, as Tom mentioned. In 2026, there's only 2 projects that are proposed. The first is the jail cell replacement. Jail cell sink and toilet replacement. And then the other is the resurfacing of the front lot at the Public Works facility. Streets and sidewalks, this continues to be where a vast majority of our effort goes into identifying, the very visible resource of our streets and sidewalks. So annually, we have programs that address the conditions of the streets and the sidewalks on our 79 miles of streets. The 4 main programs are the street improvement program, which, as Tom mentioned, we increased significantly this year, as well as the street maintenance program, sidewalk replacement program, as Don discussed, and then our streetlight replacement program. Additionally, there are several standalone projects that we're continuing into 2026. We're pursuing the design of 3 projects that will better position us for grant funding should the opportunities present themselves. The first is the Roselle Road pedestrian improvements. As Tom noted before, we have an Invest in Cook grant that funds the final, significant portion of the final design of that project. So we're proceeding with the final design starting this year and moving into next year as well to better position us for either ITEP or STP grant funding in the future. Lawrence Avenue and Plum Grove Road between Irving Park and Nergy. We discussed that one back in July, and we proceeded with the preliminary design. Grant applications are due in January for that, so we should hear in March if we were awarded funding for that next phase. And then the Bryn Mawr pedestrian improvements by Lake Park High School. We talked about that one, I think, at the last meeting. Maybe it was the meeting before that. And are applying for Safe Routes to School grant funding for that one. In the Irving Park Road area, these are the 2 projects that are ITEP funded. So those are 2 $3 million grants that we have. The phase 1 engineering will begin on the pedestrian and bike path improvements. That's the corridor from the west end of the village to the east end. And then also the long anticipated construction of the pedestrian bridge over Irving Park between Main Street and the metro station. should begin construction in 2026 with completion in 2027. Again, that uses the ITEP grant funding that we received. And finally, we continue to work with Metro and CPKC to design and implement the 24-hour quiet zone. That design will be occurring in 2026 with a final timeline on that to be determined. Stormwater, as Tom and the mayor mentioned, this does not have a specific dedicated funding source, so this gets funding from utility taxes and home rural sales tax right now. We do have our storm sewer improvement program and our yard flooding assistance program and the new ditch and culvert replacement program that went into effect, I believe, 2 years ago now. Beyond those standard programs, we do have the 3 large basin projects that we've identified. The Devlin Basin South project and the Seasons 4 project have been moving through the design process utilizing the community project funding grant that we received a couple years ago for a total of $750,000. We continue to seek grant funding through DuPage County and FEMA, though the FEMA grant funding has dried up. No pun intended, sorry. So
Only our stormwater dried up too with it.
sorry, it didn't. And then the Meacham Creek Basin, that's the Heather Green Pond area. We're continuing with the design of that. This one does have the added possibility of MWRD grant funding, which does continue to roll out every year. And there is a call for projects that closes in January, I believe. So we're continuing to seek those funding opportunities, but those are going to be the catalyst to getting the projects to construct. Water system. So these are funded through the CIS fee or the capital improvement surcharge fee. We have about 101 miles of water main in the village. And then there's 3 water storage tanks and other distribution related items. Annually, we typically fund a water main replacement program and the lead service line replacement program. However, in 2026, we're combining those, and as Tom mentioned, we're doing water main and lead service line replacement program, as well as sanitary sewer replacement in the Triangle area. That's defined as Glen Lake, Hattendorf, and Thorndale, all of those west, Glen Lake, West Hattendorf, and West Thorndale. It addresses water main and sanitary sewer that are about 100 years old. It's going to replace the 17 public side lead service lines that are in this area. Originally, we thought there were many more than that, but after Public Works did some investigation, we realized that there were less, which.
The VAC thing, right?
The VAC, yes.
When it was working.
Yes.
Or Hanover Parks, either way.
So additionally, the undersized water main on Howard will be replaced. It's currently a 4-inch main. It'll be upsized to an 8-inch main. And that also has 4 lead service lines on that stretch of Howard between Maple and Pine. So those will get replaced as well. There are also improvements to elevated tank 2 and the east pressure adjusting station that are going to happen this year. I did want to touch a little bit on this lead service line replacement status and where we were at. In 2020, we thought that there were 238 public side service lines that were either known or suspected to be lead. Since that time, we've confirmed 55 of them not to be lead. 52 of them have been replaced. 23 of them will be replaced next year, leaving 108 remaining as of December of 2026. So Public Works staff is going to continue to determine if any of these suspected locations are actually non-lead by continuing to pothole B boxes with their newly acquired VAC. So.
And just kudos on that progress. I know it's not a fun thing, and it's something that I think everyone can agree it needs to be done. But when these things get dropped down on our plate, we have to figure out how we make it happen. So I just really appreciate the efforts. I know we got lucky in some areas, which is nice to see. But I think to get from 238 to 108, it's easier said than done. And so just thank you to everyone who put in the effort on that. That's nice to see it getting to a more manageable number, I feel like, at least.
Yeah, and the IEPA requirements did not require us to start the replacement program until 2027. So we're well ahead of that mandate, which is
More than half done, and we didn't even have to start yet.
cost. So
The Roselle difference.
Where are the new water meters in this?
I believe those are in the operating budget.
Oh, okay, not in this. Okay.
Good on all these before I hand Karen over.
Any questions? Sorry, and I know I took a personal privilege there, so I apologize. Any questions or comments from the board thus far on the projects we've discussed thus far? No.
Right, so
We're spending the majority of the money.
yes. So moving on to wastewater, all the wastewater projects are funded through the CAS and as well as the home rule sales tax. We do, from a infrastructure standpoint, have 2 wastewater treatment plants, 10 lift stations, and 90 miles of sanitary sewer. And our annual programs include an offering to the residents backflow prevention program if they feel that they need those services, as well as our sanitary sewer and manhole lining. In 2026, we have several projects that are kicking off. Our Bottom BNR project, which is required as part of our regulatory requirements, was awarded, and actually the contractor has mobilized to the site and will be putting a shovel in the ground, hopefully before the end of the year. That project will continue through 2026 and likely into early 2027. And that work also includes the road repaving in that area as well. The Devlin wastewater treatment plant project continues with the design in 2026. If you recall, that includes our plant expansion as well as the regulatory requirements for phosphorus as well. And that project will be under construction in future years, anticipated in 2027 and 2028. Onto our lift station and collection system projects. Our Kennedy force main, we had several projects. All of our force mains, we did an analysis several years ago. It identified several force main projects in the future. We are finishing the design work for the Kennedy force main rehab project, which will be under construction in 2026. The limits of that project are Plum Grove Road from approximately Nergy all the way up into Schaumburg, where Schaumburg Public Works is located. If you recall, we've had several large breaks on that force main over the years. So this project will institute some lining technology, will bring that force main up to new standards and long life. Our Dunn Lift Station project, it was previously awarded and anticipated to be constructed in 2025. We've had some delays in obtaining the permits, so we're still waiting for the permits for that project. So due to the bypass pumping that we have to do is not something that can be completed during winter months. So that will be starting back up in the spring of 2026 and be completed in 2026. And then the last project is our fall force main rehab. As you may recall, we did the lift station rehabilitation previously, and now we're moving towards the replacement and or lining of that force main as well. It'll be determined as part of our design process, which technology we'll be going with for that. That's all I have from a wastewater standpoint.
Any questions on wastewater? Trustee Domke?
Devlin plant, do you have to do anything with the creek?
The creek itself, no. Not for the wastewater improvement project, no.
But don't we have to do something in our portion where the creek goes by the Devlin waste treatment plant?
Yeah, we have some tree removal work that Kristen
This is
has.
minor, not.
Minor, yes. So Public Works and Development Engineering Services are working on through a contract with our vendor COSIC that was approved, I believe, at the last board meeting, and that'll take place yet this year.
I guess there's not an answer to it, but I feel
Mhm.
like there's always gonna be something else that we're gonna have to do to continue to purify water
Mhm.
even better than we already are. Microplastics being a huge kind of thing that's out there, and there's a lot of probably regulatory pressure at some point to put some new standards on us. Is there ever a point where, and I know it's kind of hard, you can't preempt the regulation before it's written to know what you're supposed to be targeting and whatnot, but is there any filtration technology or with these things, like, do they have to be this full blown out retrofit, or are there other retrofits that we can accommodate down the road? And I don't really know how to structure the conversation because it's a very broad nebulous question, but I guess we have to do this because of phosphorus removal. What's to say, in 2-5 years from now, they say you have to get rid of microplastics to a certain degree. Is that can be a whole other wave of reconstruction, or is there other opportunities for more bolt-on filtration, I guess?
There may be other opportunities. I will say that the village is part of the DuPage River Salt Salt Creek Work Group, who works on behalf of many communities in the area who are trying to work with the EPA and the regulatory agencies to understand what's upcoming and how to mitigate some of that. So what that looks like, I think will come out of what some of those regulations are, but they're working on our behalf currently to try to help with our permit limits and try to mitigate some of that moving forward as well.
Great. And I guess there's also probably a difference between chemical filtration, like getting
Correct.
phosphorus out versus like a physical thing, no matter how small it is, it's still physical that we're trying to filter out.
Correct.
So,
Do they even know how to get rid of microplastics?
give it to the fish so you just eat it and then we'll treat it again. Any other questions on the water treatment?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, is that all of it then? Do you have a witty way to wrap us up?
One more.
Guys, we're gonna spend a shit ton of money.
Well, I will say, I forgot to add one thing. So we did talk, was here in July, plans for helping to fund it from Wintrust. And we are working with them. I know, I think it was trustee Lanisa that asked about a revolving loan program option. And they did provide that with me. I just haven't had a chance to take a look at that. So just want to give I'll give an update probably in the spring when we get closer, because if we do need it, I'll need sort of a presentation to the board, just so you know what we're doing, or at least thinking about. But the CIP, the 2026 numbers that are in the CIP are in the budget that you'll see that are in the proposed budget that you have, and we'll discuss further if you need it.
Any closing thoughts or questions from the board? I mean, the CIP is a huge piece of the budget process. I think it's always really important that when we're looking at, how we fund things and whatnot, that capital shouldn't be the first thing on the table, because that's what residents are putting their money into, and we need to make sure that they have that return on their investment in us. And I think very aggressive things, some of it we have to do, some of it is us, I think, pursuing grants and leveraging and multiplying our dollars in a way that brings back more value to our community. So appreciate the work that staff has put into it, but it's gonna be a very busy couple of years, so. All right, thank you so much, appreciate it. There's a second opportunity for a village board public comment. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to address the board at this time? The record show none. There's other business. Is there any business for discussion only from the board tonight? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those nay.